The sun was low in the sky, painting the dusty road with a deep orange glow. Shadows stretched across broken buildings, and the air smelled of dry heat and metal. People walked past each other in silence, eyes down, voices low, minds busy with their own struggles. No one noticed the alien woman standing near the wall, her body thin, her clothes old and torn. Her skin was pale blue, marked with faint scars. Her eyes tired but alert. She didn't belong here, but she had nowhere else to go. She hadn't spoken to anyone in days. She kept moving from one street to another, hiding from those who might recognize her face. She was once a servant to cruel masters, and even now, she feared they still searched for her. All she wanted was to disappear quietly, but fate had other plans. A small voice broke through the noise of footsteps. "Hey," said the voice, soft but clear. The alien woman looked down. Confused, a little human girl stood in front of her, not older than 6, with wide brown eyes and messy hair. The girl tilted her head and smiled gently. "You look lost," she said. The alien woman blinked, unsure if the child was talking to someone else, but the girl took a step closer and reached out her tiny hand. "My dad needs a wife," she added innocently. "And I need a mom." The alien's breath caught. What was this child saying? Surely she was joking, but there was no laughter in her face, only honesty. The alien opened her mouth to reply, but no words came. She hadn't been called mother in any tongue, not even as a pretend. Before she could react, a voice called out loudly, "Lena, where are you? Lena!" The little girl turned toward the sound and waved her hand. "Here, Daddy!" she yelled happily, then looked back at the alien woman. "Come with me," she whispered, grabbing the alien's hand without fear. The woman froze as warmth filled her fingers. It had been years since. Someone touched her kindly. A tall human man ran toward them, worry on his face. When he saw the girl, he let out a long breath and knelt down, hugging her tightly. "Don't run off like that, sweetheart," he said, his voice a mix of relief and scolding. "I wasn't alone," the girl said proudly, pointing behind her. The alien woman stepped back into the shadow, unsure what to do. The man followed the gesture and saw her standing there, silent, nervous, afraid. Their eyes met. He didn't look angry, just surprised. "Thank you for watching her," he said, calm and respectful. "I didn't." The alien woman began, but her voice cracked. She looked down, ashamed of her broken speech. "Would you like to eat with us?" the girl asked suddenly. The man looked unsure, but the girl grabbed his arm and whispered, "Please." He nodded after a moment. "Only if you're okay with it," he said to the woman. She hesitated, then nodded slightly. It had been so long since someone offered her food. Not as a demand, not as a trade, but just because. They walked to a small stall on the corner where steam rose from large pots. The smell made her stomach twist. She hadn't eaten a real meal in days. The man ordered 3 bowls and handed one to her. She took it slowly, her fingers shaking. "Thank you," she whispered, looking away. They sat on a bench, the little girl between them, kicking her feet and humming softly. She told the alien woman stories about her school, her dog, and how she and her dad liked to bake bread on weekends. The father mostly listened, watching the woman with quiet curiosity. He could tell she was afraid, not of him, but of everything. "My name is Lena," the girl said, grinning. The woman nodded and whispered, "I am Rel." "Rel," the girl repeated. "Pretty name." Rel looked away, her cheeks warming. When they finished eating, the man stood and reached into his pocket. "I'm Kay." "Oh," he said, offering his hand. She hesitated, then shook it. His grip was strong but gentle. He didn't ask questions, didn't press her for details. But in his eyes, Rel saw something strange. Not pity, not fear, but respect. As they parted ways, the girl ran up and hugged Rel's leg. "You're coming home with us next time," she said boldly. KL laughed, a bit embarrassed. "Lena, you can't just..." But Rel looked down, eyes full of tears she didn't understand. The girl's arms around her leg felt like hope, and for the first time in many years, Rel didn't feel invisible. Kael walked slowly beside Lena, holding her small hand tightly. Behind them, Rel followed with hesitant steps, her eyes scanning every face they passed. She wasn't used to safety. The streets once held danger in every corner. For someone like her, an alien, a fugitive, a broken thing. But tonight, there was a strange warmth she didn't understand. Kael didn't speak much, but his silence wasn't cold. He wasn't like the others who stared at her with disgust or fear. He was calm, watchful, and when he glanced at her, there was no hate in his eyes. Just curiosity, and something deeper, like he was trying to understand her pain without asking her to explain it. Lena, however, spoke non-stop. "My school had a drawing contest today," she said cheerfully, "but I didn't win." Rel looked down. "Why not?" she asked quietly. "I drew a spaceship family," Lena grinned. Everyone said it was weird. Kael chuckled softly. "Your imagination is too big for their tiny minds." Lena looked up proudly, then grabbed Rel's hand again. "I'll draw you next time." Rel blinked. No one had ever wanted to draw her. They reached a small, simple house with cracked steps and a crooked door, but the windows glowed with yellow light, and flower pots lined the walls. It felt alive, not fancy, not rich, but alive. Kael opened the door and gestured for Rel to enter first. She stepped inside like a shadow, silent and unsure. The room smelled of bread and herbs. A wooden table sat in the center, a few chairs around it. Drawings pegged to the walls. Lena ran to her corner and picked up a pillow shaped like a moon. "This is your seat now," she told Rel, and patted the cushion beside her. Kael smiled, watching them, then disappeared into the kitchen. Rel sat slowly, her fingers brushing the fabric of the pillow. It was soft. Too soft for someone like her who once slept on cold floors. Kael returned with a pot of warm tea and 3 mugs. "Nothing special," he said, placing the tray down. "But it helps on cold nights." She wrapped her hands around the mug, the warmth soaking into her skin. It had been so long since she felt heat without pain. Kael sat across from her, quietly sipping. Lena leaned on Rel's arm and whispered, "Do you like it here?" Rel nodded slowly, not trusting her voice. Kael cleared his throat. "You don't have to stay. I mean, if you have somewhere to go." She looked up sharply, panic flashing in her eyes. He raised a hand gently. "I'm not asking you to leave, just letting you decide." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Where would she even go? After a moment, she whispered, "I have nowhere." Kael nodded slowly. "Then you can stay, if you want." Lena beamed and hugged Rel tightly. "Told you, Daddy, she's perfect." Kael laughed softly, rubbing his daughter's head. "You did say that." Later, Kael went to get a blanket and some clothes. Rel stood in the hallway, unsure which room to enter. She peeked into the bathroom and froze when she saw a mirror. Her own reflection startled her. Her cheeks were sunken, her eyes hollow, her skin bruised in places still healing. She touched her face and felt ashamed. Behind her, Kael knocked lightly on the wall. "I brought you this," he said, holding out a folded shirt and sweatpants. She took them silently, bowing her head in thanks. He hesitated. "There's a mark on your back," he said gently. "I saw it earlier." Her body stiff. Ined, her fingers clenched. She turned away, ready to run. "I'm not going to ask how you got it," he said quickly. "But I know what it means." She didn't move, but her breath grew faster. "I fought in the border raids," he continued. "I saw what your kind went through." Rel's voice cracked. "Then you know why I must hide." He nodded slowly. "Yes, but you don't have to hide here." She turned her face toward him, eyes wide with disbelief. "You trust me?" He sighed. "Lena does," he said with a small smile. and that means something. She blinked, then whispered, I don't want to bring danger. Kale nodded. Then we face it together. Later that night, Rel sat on the floor beside Lena's bed, watching her sleep peacefully. Kale passed by the doorway, paused, and asked, Do you need anything? She shook her head, whispering, This is enough. He smiled, and for a brief second, something warm passed between them, a flame, not of romance, but of understanding, of two broken people daring to believe in safety again. Rel lay down on the floor, hugging the pillow, and as she closed her eyes, for the first time in years, she slept without fear. Morning sunlight crept through the curtain cracks, touching the wooden floor like soft fingers. Rel opened her eyes slowly, confused at first by the quiet warmth around her. No metal ceilings, no chains, no cold shouts, just silence, a ticking clock, and the sound of birds. She sat up and looked around. Lena's tiny room was filled with drawings, toys, and stuffed pillows shaped like stars. One picture hung low on the wall, drawn in crayons. It showed a tall man, a little girl, and an empty space beside them, clearly left for someone else. Rel stared at it, her fingers trembling. In the kitchen, Kale was already awake, cooking something in a pan that smelled of eggs and toasted bread. Lena ran up to Rel and pulled her by the hand. Come on, come eat, she said cheerfully. Daddy makes the best food in the galaxy. Rel hesitated, but the pull of the girl's hand, it felt like family, and it was hard to say no to famille. Olay. She followed Lena to the table, sat in the same place as last night. Kyle served her a plate without a word. He simply smiled and nodded. The meal was simple, but to Rel, it tasted better than any royal feast. She chewed slowly, savoring every bite like it might be her last. After breakfast, Kyle handed her a fresh towel and a change of clothes. You can shower first, he said gently. The heater's a bit stubborn, but it works. Rel nodded, clutching the clothes to her chest as she stepped into the small bathroom. She hadn't used real water in years, just recycled mist in prison camps and slave stations. Now, as the hot water ran over her body, she closed her eyes and breathed deeply. For a few moments, she let the pain wash away. She dried herself slowly and began to change. But as she pulled the shirt over her head, the fabric brushed against her back, against the scar. She winced, then turned to the mirror. There it was, dark, ugly, and shaped like a brand, a slave mark, burned deep into her skin long ago by her masters. It was the one thing she could never remove. Just then, the door creaked open. She gasped and turned, clutching the shirt to her chest. Kyle stood frozen in the doorway, eyes wide. I'm sorry, I thought you were done. I didn't mean to. But it was too late. He had seen it. Rel backed into the corner, her hands shaking. Don't look at me, she whispered, her voice full of shame. Kale didn't move closer, but his voice was calm. I saw a mark like that once, he said, on a friend during the war. Rel lowered her eyes, trying not to cry. He didn't survive, Kale added softly. But you did. I wish I hadn't, she replied bitterly. Kale's brow tightened. Why? Rel's voice cracked. Because now I carry this, and everyone who sees it knows what I was. Kale stepped back and leaned against the doorframe. No, he said firmly. They'll know what? You survived. She looked at him, confused. Some people think pain breaks you, he continued, but I've seen different. Rel didn't answer, but her grip on the shirt loosened slightly. Kale gave her space, gently closing the door. Take your time, he said from the hallway. We're not going anywhere. Later, Rel stepped out, dressed in the clean clothes, her hair still damp. Lena ran up and gave her a necklace made of string and tiny beads. I made it for my future mom, she said proudly. Now you have it. Rel took it slowly, speechless. The beads were mismatched, the string was rough, but it was the most beautiful thing she had ever received. Kyle smiled from across the room, then turned to fix something in the kitchen, but Rel saw his eyes. He was watching her carefully, not judging, just trying to understand. That night, after Lena fell asleep, Rel sat on the porch outside, staring at the sky. Kyle joined her with 2 mugs of tea. "Cold night," he said, offering her one. "Not as cold as the camps," she replied quietly. He didn't ask about the camps, didn't push her to share. He just sat beside her, the silence full of quiet respect. After a while, Rel finally asked, "Why are you being kind to me?" Kyle looked up at the stars. "Because you remind me that people can survive anything." She turned her face toward him, confused. "And because," he added softly, "Lena sees something in you I've never seen in her before. Hope." Rel didn't know what to say. No one had ever called her a symbol of hope. She used to think she was only a symbol of pain. But now, maybe, just maybe, that was starting to change. Heavy clouds rolled across the sky like silent beasts. By nightfall, soft thunder hummed in the distance, and soon the first drops of rain began to fall. Kyle moved through the house, checking the windows and placing towels beneath the drafty door. Lena laughed with excitement, jumping at every thunderclap. But Rel stood still by the window, staring into the dark. Rain reminded her of another time, of escape, of fear, of running barefoot across cold metal fields. Kale noticed her silence. "You okay?" he asked gently. She nodded slowly, though her eyes never left the window. "I don't like storms," she said, her voice quiet. Kyle didn't push for more. He just nodded and offered her a warm mug. "Tea helps." Rel took the cup and wrapped both hands around it. The warmth seeped into her skin. Outside, lightning flashed, and for a moment, the entire street lit up. She flinched, her back pressing into the wall. Kale stepped beside her, giving space, but not leaving. "No one's coming for you tonight," he said softly. But Rel wasn't sure she believed that. Lena tugged her hand. "Come sit with me." She led Rel to the living room floor, where she had placed blankets and pillows in a little nest. "This is our spaceship hideout," Lena announced proudly. "We're safe here." Rel sat beside her, allowing herself to lean back. The thunder roared, and Lena grabbed Rel's arm tightly. "I'm not scared," the girl whispered, even though her eyes were wide. Rel gently pulled the blanket over them both. "Me neither," she lied. Kale sat on the nearby couch, reading a book but watching them from the corner of his eye. The image of Rel holding Lena like a mother made something stir in his chest. She looked natural, like she belonged. He wondered if she felt it too, or if she still believed she was only a visitor. After an hour, Lena's eyes grew heavy. Her head rested on Rel's shoulder, breathing soft and slow. Kyle closed the book and stood. "You can sleep in the guest room," he said quietly. Rel shook her head. "She'll wake up if I move." Kale nodded. "Then I'll bring another blanket." As Kale stepped into the hallway, he heard Rel whispering softly to Lena. A lullaby, strange and low in a language he didn't know, but the sound was soothing, even haunting. He didn't interrupt, just listened. It was the first time he heard her sing, Lat. Ere that night, Kyle returned to the living room and found Rel still awake. She sat beside the sleeping girl, staring into the soft light of a wall lamp. He handed her a pillow and sat nearby on the floor. "The way you sang," he said. "Was that your home language?" Rel nodded, not meeting his eyes. "My mother sang it," she said, "before she was taken." Kale's face turned serious. "You don't have to tell me," he said gently. Rel looked down at her hands. "They came when I was young," she said slowly. "Took my people, burned our farms, forced us to serve." She swallowed, her voice cracking. "I escaped, but I left many behind." Kyle's jaw tightened. He wanted to say something, anything, but words felt small next to her pain. Instead, he reached beside him, grabbed the small beaded necklace Lena had made, and held it up. "She gave this to you because she believes in you," he said. "She doesn't even know me," Rel replied. Kyle looked at her carefully. "Sometimes kids know things adults forget," he said. "They see people for who they are, not what they were." Rel was quiet for a long time. "I'm not good," she whispered. "I've done terrible things, just to survive." Kael's voice was steady. "Survival doesn't make you bad," he said. "It makes you strong." Outside, rain beat harder against the windows. A gust of wind shook the shutters, making Rel flinch again. Kael noticed. "You think someone's still after you?" Rel looked him in the eyes for the first time all night. "Yes," she said. "Someone always is." Kael's voice dropped low. "Then we prepare." Rel blinked, surprised. "You're not afraid?" Kael shook his head. "I was a soldier before I became a baker," he said. "I know how to protect what matters." Rhea looked down at Lena, sleeping peacefully between them. Something deep in her chest ached, fear and longing fighting inside her. "I don't want her to get hurt," she said. Kyle nodded. "Neither do I." The thunder quieted, replaced by steady rain. Kale stood up and stretched. "I'll be in the next room if you need anything." Rel nodded slowly. As he walked away, she looked back at Lena. She touched the girl's hair gently, then laid down beside her, whispering, "I'll protect you, no matter what." And for the first time in years, she meant it. Morning came with the smell of fresh bread. Kale was already in the kitchen, flour dusting his hands as he shaped the dough. Lena danced around him, wearing mismatched socks and a proud grin. "She's still sleeping," Lena whispered. "Let her rest." Kyle nodded and smiled. "She deserves it." Rel woke slowly, blinking against the soft light. Her body ached less than before, and her mind felt clearer. The warmth of the home was still around her. Gentle voices, simple kindness. It almost felt safe. Almost. She stepped into the kitchen, and Lena ran to hug her legs. Kyle handed her a warm roll. "Good morning," he said simply. She took it with both hands, bowing slightly. It was her way of saying thank you, but peace has a way of breaking without warning. Just before noon the doorbell rang, once, then again, loud and sharp. Kale looked up, frowning. He wasn't expecting anyone. He wiped his hands and moved toward the door. "Stay here," he said quietly to Rel. She froze, her heart suddenly pounding. There was something about the way the bell rang. Too harsh, too impatient. Kyle opened the door halfway and stepped outside. Two alien men stood on the porch, tall and rough-looking. Their clothes were dusty, their faces cruel. One had a scar across his lip. The other wore a heavy jacket with a broken chain hanging from his belt. "We're looking for someone," the scarred one said, grinning. Kael's eyes narrowed. "This isn't a shelter," he replied calmly. The man stepped closer, his tone turning sharp. "She goes by many names," he said. "But she has a mark on her back, shaped like fire." Inside the house, Rel heard every word. Her fingers gripped to the edge of the table. She knew those voices. She knew those men. They were part of the hunting squads, sent to retrieve escaped property. To them, she was still property. Kale didn't flinch. "No one like that here," he said. The second man stepped forward, peering through the window. "Strange," he said. "We tracked her signal to this street." Rel's breath caught. Her tag implant. She thought it was destroyed years ago, but some pieces must have survived. Now they had found her. Kale stood firm, blocking the view. "You should leave," he said coldly, "before you cause trouble." The scarred man laughed. "And if we don't?" Kyle's voice dropped. "Then I make you." There was silence for a long second. Then the men backed off, smirking. "This isn't over," one hissed. "Tell her we're coming," the other added, "and this time, she won't run far." They walked away slowly, like predators who had marked their prey. Kale shut the door and locked it, then turned around. Rel stood frozen in the hallway, her face pale, her hands trembling. "They found me," she whispered. Kale nodded slowly. "I know. I have to go," she said quickly. "I can't bring danger here." Kale stepped closer. "If you run, they'll catch you." "I've escaped before," she said, voice tight. "And you nearly died," he replied. "You don't have to run anymore." "But what about Lena?" Rel's voice cracked. "If they hurt her—" Kale stepped forward, his tone firm. "I've trained in war," he said. "I can protect this house, but not forever." Rel whispered. Kale looked her in the eyes. "Then we stand together, not as strangers, but as family." Tears filled Rel's eyes. "I don't deserve a family," she said. "You do," Kale replied. "Lena already chose you." Lena peeked from behind the couch, her voice soft. "Don't go, Rel," she said. "Please." Rel dropped to her knees, opening her arms. The little girl ran into them, hugging her tightly. "I'll be brave," Lena whispered. "Like you." Something inside Rel broke and healed at the same time. She held the child close, nodding slowly. "I won't leave," she said. "Not again." Kale placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then we prepare," he said. "I'll call some friends, ex-soldiers who still owe me favors." Rel stood, her eyes steady now. "No more running," she said. "Let them come." Outside, the sky darkened again, but inside the little home, a fire had been lit. Not of fear, but of defiance. Rel was no longer a broken fugitive. She was something stronger now. She was a protector, and she had something to protect. Night fell fast, like a curtain pulled over the stars. The air outside was quiet, but it wasn't peace. It was the kind of silence that comes before something dangerous. Inside the house, Rel helped Kyle board up the windows. She moved quickly, her hands steady even though her heart raced. Kyle checked the back door and secured the locks, his voice calm, but his eyes sharp. "I've contacted 3 old friends," he said. "They're on their way." Rel looked at him, surprised. "You trust them?" Kyle nodded. "They were with me during the border wars. We saved each other more than once." Rel placed a chair under the front doorknob and moved a heavy box beside it. Every sound outside made her flinch. But she wasn't running. Not this time. Lena sat in the middle of the living room, drawing pictures with a crayon. She looked up and smiled. "Are we playing a game again?" Kale knelt beside her, brushing her hair. "Just pretending we're building a fort," he said. Lena giggled. "It's the best one ever." But Rel knew this wasn't a game. This was survival. An hour passed. Then another. Kyle's friends arrived. 2 humans and 1 alien soldier with cybernetic arms. They greeted Rel with respect, no judgment in their eyes. They had seen scars before. One of them, a tall woman named Fen, handed Rel a small stun baton. "Do you know how to use this?" Rel nodded, gripping it tightly. They placed motion sensors around the yard. Locked the gate with Kyle's old truck. Every movement was planned, practiced, sharp. Rel was amazed. Kyle wasn't just a baker. He was a warrior in hiding. Just after midnight, it began. A low hum came from the dark street, an old transport vehicle without lights. Inside it, the 2 alien hunters from earlier, and more, maybe 5 or 6 total. They moved quietly, but the sensors caught them. Red lights flashed in the hallway. Kale raised a hand, signaling silence. Rel picked up Lena and carried her to the back room, whispering, "Stay here, stay quiet." Lena nodded, clutching her moon-shaped pillow. "I believe in you," she whispered. Rel kissed her forehead and shut the door. Kale and his team took positions. Rel stood near the hallway corner, baton ready, heart pounding like thunder. The front window shattered first. Glass rained into the living room. Smoke bombs rolled in, hissing, filling the air with fog. Kale shouted, "Go!" The fight was fast and fierce. The intruders stormed in, expecting an easy capture, but they were wrong. Kyle tackled one to the floor, Locking his arms, Fen knocked another back with a shock round. The cybernetic alien, Joro, slammed two against the wall with mechanical strength, but one of the hunters slipped past them, heading for the back room. Rel saw him. Without thinking, she ran after him. The hallway was narrow, her feet barely touching the ground. She jumped onto the attacker's back, slamming the baton into his neck. He screamed, sparks flying from his collar device. They crashed into the wall. He reached to grab her throat, but she struck again, harder, until he collapsed. Panting, Rel stepped over him, opened the back room. Lena was still hiding, silent, her eyes wide. "It's okay," Rel whispered. "It's over." Behind her, footsteps ran down the hall. Kale, bruised but standing strong. "You saved her," he said, breathless. Rel looked at her hands, still shaking. I had to," she whispered. Kale nodded. "That's what family does." The authorities arrived shortly after, called in by one of Kale's team. The attackers were arrested, the transport impounded. They were part of an old slave trading network, still operating underground. The officers took reports, gave warnings, and left. It was late, nearly dawn, but no one slept. Kale sat on the porch steps, a cut on his cheek and dirt on his shirt. Rel came out with 2 mugs of tea. They sat side by side in silence for a long time. "You fought like a soldier," Kale finally said. Rel gave a tired smile. "I fought like a mother." He looked at her, a quiet respect in his eyes. "I've seen warriors in battle," he said, "but none fight harder than someone protecting what they love." She looked down at the tea, her voice soft. "I never thought I'd find a place like this," Kale answered. "You didn't find it," he said. "You helped build it." Inside, Lena was curled up on the couch, still holding the drawing she made earlier. Now Rel stood proudly in the center of it, between a father and a daughter. Dawn broke slowly, painting the sky in soft orange and pale pink. The storm had passed, and the wind was still. Rainwater glistened on the wooden porch like tiny stars. Rel stood barefoot at the doorway, her arms crossed as the first light touched her face. She didn't feel fear this morning. She felt something else. Heavy, quiet, and strong. It wasn't running, it wasn't hiding, it was staying. Behind her, the house was quiet. Kale was in the kitchen, quietly repairing a broken chair from the night's fight. Lena was still asleep, curled into a ball under 3 blankets. Joro and the others had already left before sunrise, their job done. But Rel remained, her heart heavier than it had ever been. And somehow, also lighter, she stepped onto the porch and sat at the top stair. The wood was damp and cool under her. Kale soon joined her, holding 2 mugs of tea. He handed her one without a word, and they sat in silence. Birds chirped softly in the trees. A neighbor walked by with a dog, nodded at them. The world felt normal again, but Rel knew nothing would be the same now. "They'll come again," she said finally. Kale nodded. "Maybe. But this time, I won't run," she added, her voice steady. Kale turned to her. "You don't have to face it alone anymore." Rel stared ahead, then spoke quietly. "Back then, when I escaped the pit, I thought I'd be free if I disappeared." She swallowed hard. "But being alone isn't freedom." Kale listened without interrupting. "I was afraid of people, afraid of kindness, afraid if someone got close, they'd see the cracks," she said. He looked at her gently. "We all have cracks," he replied. "It's where the light comes in." She smiled faintly, but her eyes held something serious. "I need to choose now," she whispered. "Do I keep walking alone, or finally belong somewhere?" Kyle didn't speak. He didn't want to influence her, but deep inside, his heart hoped for just one word. Rel stood slowly, setting the mug down beside her. She walked back inside, toward the small bedroom where Lena still slept. She opened the door softly and stepped in. The little girl stirred, rubbing her eyes and yawning. "Morning," she said sleepily. Rel knelt beside the bed, brushing the girl's hair from her face. I have to ask you something, she said gently. Lena blinked. What is it? Do you still want me to stay? Rel asked. Lena sat up quickly and threw her arms around Rel's neck. I told you already, she whispered. You're my mom now. Tears filled Rel's eyes as she held the child close. Her voice cracked. Then I stay. Later that day, Rel opened an old cloth bundle she had hidden deep in her satchel. Inside were papers, worn and dusty, a record of her name, her family, her birth. Most of it had been destroyed long ago, but one part remained. Her name, Rel Sara of Orion. Kael watched as she gently handed it to him. I want to register here, she said. In your world. You sure? He asked. She nodded. I don't want to be a ghost anymore. He helped her fill out the forms. They took her to the town office the next day. Some people stared at her alien features, but no one stopped her, not with Kael and Lena standing proudly beside her. When the official asked for her occupation, she hesitated, then smiled softly and wrote, Protector. Days turned into weeks. Rel helped in Kael's bakery, serving customers with shy smiles. Lena drew more pictures, always adding Rel into the family scenes. Sometimes, Kael would glance over and see them laughing together, and every time, he felt something growing inside his chest, something warm and bright. One evening, Kael sat on the porch as the stars came out. Rel stepped beside him, now wearing a soft scarf Lena had made. She looked up at the sky and whispered, I used to look at those stars and wonder if I'd ever be more than someone running. Kael smiled. And now? Rel turned to him, her eyes full of peace. Now I'm someone who's found her place. Kael hesitated, then asked, Do you think we're family now? Rel didn't answer with words. She simply reached for his hand and held it tightly. Behind them, Lena called out from inside. Mom, Dad, I made dessert. Kael and Rel looked at each other, both laughing softly. The words still felt strange to Rel. Mom. But it didn't feel wrong anymore. It felt right. She wasn't a slave. She wasn't a fugitive. She wasn't lost. She was home.